Thank you for coming out so early this morning. It's quite unusual for me to, and the artist I'm going to be introducing, to be here, as it is for you, in this extraordinary place this early in the morning. Thank you all for coming out. We're here at the Royal Albert Hall, which is, of course, a place where everybody from the Beatles, Mahalia Jackson, Duke Ellington, who's pictured over there, you name it, they've played here. And the artist I'm going to be introducing is also going to be performing here. They say that you only perform at the Albert Hall twice in your career. Once on the way up and once on the way down. Well, it's good to be back. Just thought I'd warm you up with a joke this time in the morning. So I'm delighted to say that the artist we have here, I'm going to be introducing, is an extraordinarily talented man. He's a person, I bought his records as a fan, and he has lots of modern admirers amongst the contemporary artists. He's a man that's one of the only 3 artists in history to sell over 100 million records, both as part of a group and as his solo work, and that really is a lot of records. He's won Grammys, Brits, Golden Globes, and an Oscar, and he's had more top 40 singles than any other artists in the 1980s. And I think his music really has been a soundtrack to lots of people's lives, and all of the modern people like Beyonce and Pharrell and Adele, all of these people sort of have now fallen in love with him as well. So, and he's also, of course, a great Londoner, and so we should be able to understand clearly what he's saying. And I'm going to welcome him to the stage now. But before we do meet him, let's have a little look at the stage, look at this screen to remind ourselves exactly who I'm talking about. There we are. Let's have a round of applause just for some of those great achievements that we saw there. And now I'm delighted and honoured to welcome to the stage. I'm going to be asking him a few questions, and then it'll be thrown over to all of you to ask your own questions. Please welcome Mr. Phil Collins, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Said they wanted some photographs, Jools.
Oh, some photographs. Would you like some photographs first? There you are.
Probably not, huh?
Dazzling example of person there. Look, who can.
Feel overdressed. Okay.
So, I suppose the
What?
You're going to be returning live. Yes, you're coming back live. First of all, what shows will you be doing?
Well, we're doing a week here. 5 nights anyway. And we do 5 nights in Cologne in Germany, and then 5 nights in Paris. And then I'm going to have a lie down.
Yes, good idea.
But that's as far as we've got so far. You know, I mean, it's just I was brought up old school to think that when you went on tour, it was like going to war. You wasn't quite sure when you were ever going to come back. Now it's a little bit different, so we're doing 3 weeks.
So this is all in June next year?
All in June.
It's going to be at the Albert Hall and in Paris and in Cologne. And, I mean, you haven't toured since 2007, and then after that, you said you were going to retire. What's made you change your mind and want to come back to?
Well, actually, the first Final Farewell tour, which was in 2004-05, that was meant to be me stopping. we did do the 2007 Genesis reunion tour because I certainly felt, and I think the other guys would agree, that we never really said goodbye properly. You know, it kind of, after I left it, you know, they did an album and it kind of fizzled out a little bit. So to go back out there and say goodbye properly, that was why we did the reunion tour. But I've been trying to stop the oil tanker since 2005. It took a while. I was also doing the Broadway musical. You know, that was something that was very exciting for Disney, and something very different, which is, of course, appealed to me. But yeah, I retired. Retired. It's a kind of a funny word. Retired. Stopped work because I wanted to be a dad at home. And as bad luck would have it, as soon as I retired, my family, you know, we split up. So I didn't have anything to go home to, really. And that's when I started drinking, and that's all in the book. But yeah, I just, I mean, in terms of why I changed my mind, I think that's what it is. I mean, this retirement, coming out of retirement, I've changed my mind. I'm living with my young kids, and they want me to go out on the road to do some new things, and you know, there's no reason why not.
And what will you be? Will your family be playing with you on the stage?
Yeah, Nicholas, who's 15 now, he's a fantastic drummer. I mean, my oldest son, Simon, is also a fantastic drummer, you know, but he has his own career, and, you know, he's got his own, you know, very firm views about what he wants to do. Nicholas is in, you know, the learning stage, and he's already a fantastic drummer. We did 3 shows in Europe this year, charity shows, and he played, and he was fantastic. All the band were very impressed. So he'll be going out with me, and he'll be 16 by the time we do this.
And so, what will you be playing the piano more, or just singing? How will you be?
I think I'll be just singing. Nick might play piano on something, but I think I'll just be singing. I mean, I've got a drum kit in the garage, and I will be getting to that to see if I can play da 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 da. You know, if I can do in the air.
Yeah.
That would be something that I feel I should do.
One of the most noted drum intros or drum pieces of all time, really. So I think it would be good if you could. Is it physically okay for you to play?
Yeah, it's just, you know, I play with my fingers, you know, like a lot of the time. I mean, different drummers play different ways. But I play, a lot of it comes from dexterity with fingers, you know. And that's the thing that has clammed up over the last few years. So it's just a question of getting strength back in those fingers and doing it.
And the tour is going to be called Not Dead Yet. And that's also the title of your book, isn't it?
Yes.
In fact, Not Dead Yet Live. Not
Dead Yet Live, a bit. Yeah, well, you know, it's the translation of this title, of course, where by the time you get into Polish and Czechoslovakian and German and French and Spanish, it loses a bit of the humour, I have to say. But it is, you know, English humour, a bit Python-esque, and...
Not Dead Yet Live.
Not Dead Yet Live. Work that one out, you know. So yes, I decided to call the book that because a lot of it has been made of my health, and also because there was still some things to do. So it was more like not dead yet, still got things to do.
Was it an enjoyable process doing an autobiography as well? Because it's all coming out at the same time. You've had to look back at things. Did you enjoy that looking back?
Yeah, I mean, as I said to you a little earlier, you know, I don't really want the book to be lumped together with the reissues, because the reissues was just a different idea. And the singles thing, there's a big, you know, multiple CD thing of all the singles, hits and the misses. It's just a complete collection of all the singles. And that kind of tops off the year of the reissues with the new covers and the extra CD each time. But the book has taken, you know, I mean, I started it in 2010. It's taken a while to do. And it is, you know, it's in, I mean, I feel very responsible for it. I did have a bit of help from Craig McLean, a great journalist who became a great friend, and just to put the things in order, because I wrote the early days, and then when I got to the music, I just got bored, because I told some of the stories quite a lot, and I just, you know, don't know if I could handle it again. So, but we did it, and with his help, it came out very well. But it's a very honest, funny, as well as being honest and sad sometimes, and you know.
And when you look back, as particularly over the music, and bearing in mind you're going to be out on tour and looking back at all of those singles and all those album tracks and everything, and is there something that stands out as being a favourite of yours, or some of your favourite works, or the things you're most proud of?
Yeah, but I mean, the ones that I am most proud of, I think, are the ones that no one really ever takes any notice of, you know. I've never made a secret of the fact that Both Sides was my favourite record, because I did everything myself, and I found that the music just came out, you know, it just came out, and I was doing things I'd never done before. But of course, people know me for some of those things that was on the tape, you know, and I can't do a concert without playing some of those. Some of them, if I didn't have to sing again, that would be okay too, you know. But it's my job to sort of put in things. If people want to come and see me play, see me sing, then they've got to have some of the things that they know and they've grown to like.
Yeah, well, the soundtrack to their lives. And there's also, it's not just the older audience, but there's a whole lot of contemporary artists who've expressed great admiration for you, like Adele and Pharrell, Kanye West and Beyonce and people. Having all of those new young artists, was that a surprise when to find that they were all great admirers of yours?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I usually hear about this stuff third hand. Lily, my daughter, you know, she usually sort of texts me or calls me and says, "Have you seen what so-and-so says?" And I said, "No." And so she'll tell me what this person said, and I say, "Well, that's nice. I mean, thank you." You know, it was very nice to be thought of in those terms, because I grew up a rhythm and blues fan. I mean, the Beatles were there, of course. But for me, other than that, it was all rhythm and blues and Stax Atlantic and Motown. And so having these guys see through the bad press, see through people's opinions and all the negative stuff, they just hear it and like it, or they don't like it. And they really took to it, you know. I mean, and to say that I'm one of their influences, I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah, it's a great thing to have, isn't it? And especially to have lots of generations enjoying your music. And you're about to go, as we said, your tour, you're going to be playing here for 5 nights next June, and in Germany and in Paris. And have you been doing any particular preparations to get yourself, you know, have you been going to other shows? Have you been thinking about how you might sort of set things up for the tour, on top of the stage and everything?
I suppose I should have done. I mean, I'm certainly... Yes, I should see what's out there, I suppose. I've heard great things about Adele's show, for example, who I think is one of the strongest artists that we've had for a long time. But, yeah, I mean, I've worked forever with Patrick Woodruff, who does, you know, the Olympics, he does the Stones, I think he even did Adele. But so I've been working with him, as Genesis have always worked with him. And we've been starting work early on what the show could be and how it you know, can take form. Usually these kind of things are a little late, but we've started well early. So there are thoughts on how it can be, you know. But I mean, it's going to be essentially a kind of a tromp, you know, a troll, if you want to, or a romp, which is a tromp, a troll or a romp through my stuff that people know.
And are you? Do you think, as an artist, I ask some artists this: are you a spontaneous or are you a well rehearsed? In which category do you fit in, or do you sort of span the two?
Well, I mean, when you got like a 12-piece band, you can't be too spontaneous, The show grows and things develop within that, during the rehearsal period. And of course, a lot of my stuff, I played myself and then brought people in to ornament, if you like. But, when you got a song that I played on my own on the record and you give it to 12 great musicians, it's going to sound different. So there's spontaneity. Changing a show every night, that's a little bit more difficult because you've got lighting cues, you've got, sometimes, and if you haven't done it for a long time, you don't really, if you get it to work, you are kind of, I mean, what can happen in between tunes is spontaneous. I mean, there's obviously the way it can be set up. I think a lot of people tend to think of me as shiny BMW music. And if the truth were known, I'm actually completely the opposite of that. I mean, the way I work is improvisation, and I sing. I mean, the story about In the Air Tonight is true. I just was in my studio. I sang those lyrics. I didn't sit down and say, now what's going to sound great. I mean, I just sang the lyrics and then wrote them down afterwards. And that's nearly all my work since then has been like that. Whether it's for Disney, whether it's, the spontaneity. And, I think that's a little bit of a misconception with me.
And the records, the great collection is coming out of all of this work, which also you'll be playing live. Are you nervous about coming back live after all this time, or are you looking forward to it?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. As I say, the reason I've kind of bitten the bullet and doing it is because I have done these 3 shows, albeit them truncated, like 7-song sets in these charity events with Little Dreams that I've been doing this year. And, when you first go out on stage and you haven't done it for 10 years, certainly on your own, the reaction was very warming. And the band, of course, they play better than I do. So it's really something, I'm looking forward to. And especially having Nicholas behind me on drums, because he because of his influences, I mean, Bonham and Chad Smith and me, there's a lot of balls, And I've only got we have this little kind of shorthand between us. And he takes notes very well. He doesn't get offended, which is one of the things that you have to be careful of if you're going to have, family in the band, that you don't all fall out over the smallest thing. But he's a fantastic drummer.
And nice to have your son with you on tour as well. And when you're on tour, for instance, as an example, I asked Björk once if she was something she'd like taking on tour with her, and she took a Primus stove, and she would set up and make a little sort of beans on toast in her hotel room or whatever she was going to do. Is there anything that you like to take on tour with you to, when you're in the hotel rooms and you're sort of over the years of all your different tours and things that you like to take with you?
No, that's a nice idea. I mean, just sort of
I've got one here available.
Beans on toast, instead of paying, $3,000 for an egg and chips. Yeah, that does sound like an interesting idea. We've never had particular riders. At one point, this is back in the 80s now, I developed a taste for steak tartare, right? But steak tartare, of course, has to be prepared well. It's not just raw meat. Anyways, I said I liked it once. and I got it every night in the dressing room, raw hamburger patties. That had never seen any seasoning, never seen any of the things that you're supposed to put in and take that. And I just got so fed up with seeing them, I once just put it on the wall as a warning to others. I never saw them again.
Yeah, that's very good. You've got to be careful what you... In fact, if you'd have said the wrong thing and somebody publishes it today, you'd then have 10,000 primer stoves or baked beans or whatever it is you sort of asked for. Well, I think I'm going to throw over now to the ladies and gentlemen here who are gathered. And so if any of you would like to ask my client a question, he's prepared to answer them as well as he possibly can. The gentleman over there with the shirt.
Thank you. Adam Sherwin from the iNewspaper. Would the medical advice to you that you couldn't ever play drums again, is it going to be particularly painful for you to play drums? Will you be able to build it back up in the way that you used to?
I don't think I'll ever be able to play the way I used to, no. I mean, yeah, something happened. I can remember it was on the Genesis tour, the reunion tour, around the time of the drum duet into Los Endos near the end of the show. The drum duet would get, pushing it as we used to, Jester and I. Something happened one night, and at that point it never came back. And I tried to use heavier sticks, I tried to use bigger cymbals, I just couldn't get any power with this hand. So it's a little bit of a mystery as to why it happened, but I'm 65, I've been playing since I was 5 years old. And I just think that I'd like to have the choice, but, I'm not going to lose sleep over it anymore.
This gentleman here with the blue shirt.
Hi, Phil. I'm Chris from Metro. It's well documented, drink, divorce, and now disability. What are you doing to prepare yourself for the rigours of a new tour?
Yes. What am I doing? Well, the state of play at the moment is I had back surgery because of this 60 years of drumming. Really messed my back up, and it messed my hips up as well. Just 60 years of doing this. I had back surgery to sort that out, but it's left me, as of now, a year ago, it's left me with what they call drop foot, which is a foot. My right foot doesn't have any up and down, doesn't have any feeling. That I'm hoping in time will get better as nerves regenerate. So I will be, it's on the top of my to-do list in terms of getting some physical, physical stuff done. I mean, I'm doing water therapy, which is very good, and it is high on my to-do list. You mentioned divorces and drinking. That kind of doesn't really get in the way of this. The disabilities do, and I'm back with my third wife, so I've only really been divorced twice, I suppose you could say. Could say if you were generous, you could say that. And she didn't give me the money back, but. But nevertheless, no, we're not downhearted. It's all.
Thank you for your helpful questions. I'll just move on. I'll just move my client on. This lady here with the brown jumper.
Hello, Phil.
Hi.
It's well documented by yourself and every music journalist that a lot of pain contributed to the massive hits of the early 80s in your personal life. Now that you're hopefully very content, what will inspire you, if anything, to write new music?
Well, it all starts for me when you put your hands down on a keyboard and something happens, or it doesn't, but something happens. And then the lyrics that you'll come up with will be in sympathy with the music that you've written. So even if it's a slightly sad piece of music, you will recall certain things that go with the music, you know. I mean, it all happened spontaneously, of course, you know, with some of the early albums. I mean, in any album, I think you can tell what's going on in my life, and I'm pretty direct about it, and that doesn't bother me. But in terms of being inspired for new material, you know, it all depends on what happens, what comes out when you put your hands down there and it comes out, you know. So I don't anticipate going through that again. Please God.
There's a fellow here with the blue jumper.
Hi, Phil. You mentioned Genesis earlier on and bringing it to an end. Does that mean Genesis is over once and for all, or would you rule out that something might happen, a piece of music or something? Because I think Mike Rutherford, for example, doesn't rule it out once and for all.
Yeah. Well, doing the book, I was reminded just how good friends we are. You know, quite often I would return to the fold, if you like, and we'd do something. That kind of changed when I moved to Switzerland because of the distance, and I must say, Tony and Mike said, you know, our kids are grown up, we'll come to you. I just don't want to get busy. I don't want to get too busy. And I know how things are. You know, you write a few pieces of music, and then you do an album, and then you go out and talk about it, and then suddenly there's a tour, and suddenly you look back and it's 6 months, you know. And I don't want to do that, but I would say that what I consider what we had as pretty special, in as much as the three of us would just sit down in a room with nothing prepared. There wasn't one writer, there wasn't two writers. We'd just come in with nothing, and we'd just start playing until something happened, you know, and we'd record it and then just come back to it a couple of weeks later. And from there, songs would develop. And that is pretty special, to have a relationship with guys that do that, or can do that. So I wouldn't rule it out, you know. I wouldn't rule it out.
So the lady here with just in the second row.
Hi Phil, you recently reissued your albums. Revisiting them, were there any surprises for you, songs you'd forgotten how much you enjoyed, or underrated gems?
Yes, I think over the years you tend to sort of paint records into certain corners, you know. Like people call the Face Value album the divorce album, you know. But actually on Face Value there's some very optimistic songs. You know, I met Jill between the whole writing of that and the recording and waiting for it to come out. I met Jill, and so there's some positive songs, very, very, you know, kind of romantic songs, if you like. I feel less affection for No Jacket Required, and I feel a bit more affection for Hello, I Must Be Going than I did for a long time. But, you know, yeah, that's something that you kind of think you know what an album's about, and then you go back and listen to it, and you realize it's either better than you thought or it's not as good as you thought.
This lady here in the front row.
Hiya, Phil. Carla Battisti from Entertainment News. You did mention just earlier about bad press. Do you think with this autobiography, it's given you like an inner strength? It's like, well, they can say what they want now because I've already said it all. Do you think it's going to...
Yeah, I guess, you know. I mean, I didn't intend it to be a get-even book with anybody. I mean, I just said what I felt should be said, you know, whether it's, whether it's about the FAX issue, which shan't be mentioned, but whether it's, you know, just taking the lid off some things. Live Aid, you know. I've been blamed for Led Zeppelin at Live Aid ever since we did it. And now I've had an opportunity to explain what did happen, you know. So things like that, you know. I mean, I feel like I've got it all out in the open, and if anybody wants to check out the truth, as far as I see it, you know, I do put at the beginning of the book that this is my life the way I see it, the way I remembered it. It may not tally with everybody's, you know, like, I mean, 4 people can be in a room and 3 people can remember it totally differently. You know, a witness at an accident, you know, he wore blue jumper. No, he didn't, he wore a black jumper. You know, it's like these kind of things, you know, we were all in the same place, but we remember different things.
So I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Could I, somebody who hasn't asked a question, perhaps there's a fellow at the back. I'll just come to it. There's 2 fellows at the back there.
Hi Phil, John from the NME. Jools was mentioning your younger generation of admirers like Adele and Pharrell and so on. Have you had offers to work with any of them, and would you be interested if the offers came along?
Sure. I mean, I've got Pharrell's number, and my Lily got it for me because she's kind of knows him, and I don't know what to say to him. You know, I mean, oh, I really like you. Really like what you do, man. I would work with them, I think. I mean, it depends when that came up, and it depends what it was, you know. I mean, I did have this thing with Adele where she asked me if I would write with her, and then when we met in London, and she gave me a piece of music, and then she disappeared, which I believe she does quite a lot. But and I was kind of frantically writing it, but then she said, I'm moving and it's a bit early. So we almost came close to working. I didn't actually finish the thing, and she never got to hear what I did because she, you know, it was too early for her to start work on the 3rd album. You know, she had just had the baby and stuff. But, yeah, if something turned up, it would be interesting. I don't really just want to be an ornament on someone else's cake, though. You know, I mean, I think that, you know, if it's a real project to do something together, then possibly.
The gentleman with the blue shirt there.
It's a good green shirt, actually.
Sorry, green, bad lighting.
Hi, Phil. It's James from Star here. A little while ago, you said you were writing a book about the Alamo. Is that something that's still ongoing, or have you got other projects? It's all out, is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I did it. It's a history book, you know. I mean, no one pays attention to history books. I had, apparently, I mean, it wasn't the idea, but I had one of the biggest private collections of Alamo-related relics and documents and effects, and I just collected it, you know, because I couldn't resist it, and it was what I spent my money on, apart from the divorces, of course. And then I started to wonder what was going to happen to it, so I gave it all to the Alamo. And they're going to make a museum. You know, they're putting a museum together. So, for me, that's a full circle. That's great. From being 5 years old and falling in love with the story to now, you know, that's a great story. But before I let it go, I did a 400-page coffee table book about the collection, and that's what started me writing this, you know, the autobiography. And it was great fun to write. You know, it was doing something different every day, going down, you know, to sitting at a computer and looking up the historical stuff, because it had to be right. It's history. It's documented. So yeah, that came out in 2010.
So I think we could have one last question. There was a gentleman here with on the third row back with the checkered shirt.
It's called the Alamo, A Collector's Journey is what it's called, for the 3 people here that might be interested in buying it.
Hi, Phil. Speaking about your own history, we've had the compilation of the albums and the singles, and you've done the retrospectives with Genesis. Is there any chance of a sort of retrospective compilation of your own B-sides and outtakes or whatever at some point?
No, I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, frankly, I think most of the things that are out there, you know, people have. I mean, and there are some things out there. You know, when I was looking for things to put on the second albums, you know, like for Face Value, second CD, etc. Hello, I Must Be Going, the second CD, I went on YouTube just to see what was around, you know, live material. And I found a demo that I'd made, never finished, and had forgotten I'd written. And there is only one tape of that, and I have it, and yet it was on YouTube. And I heard it and thought, that's quite good, you know, and I tried to learn to play it again. But I mean, the stuff that's out there, you know, I think most fans that are interested in those rarities probably have them, you know, and I think after a year of reissues, I don't think I want to do any more.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for all of your questions. And is that, I'm just glancing around for the, is that right? We've done the right thing, have we? Excellent. Could we have a round of applause, please? Phil Collins, thank you so much all for coming this morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.